Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and it's a very, very big weekend here in Iowa. There's a first coming in NASCAR, although for those of you that don't know, I think everybody knows at this point, I'm just not the sportiest person. I don't know about sports that much. I know just enough to sound like an idiot, so that's why we bring experts on here. And today we're joined by Eric Peterson, the new president of the Iowa Speedway, of course, in Newton. Eric, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is a big deal. There's some big news about, and I don't understand this. This is why you're on the show, but the first ever NASCAR Cup Series race is June 16th. Is that right? Did I get that date right?
That's exactly right. A truly historic race coming up this weekend.
Yeah, so what's so different about this? For those that don't fully understand, because NASCAR is not something that has been in Iowa for a very long time. The Newton Speedway is still a bit young. And so we've had NASCAR before in Iowa, so how is this different? Can you give us kind of a beginner crash course? No pun intended there either.
That's a great question. And Iowa Speedway opened in 2006. And we've had a variety of racing series here over the years. So NASCAR Truck Series, NASCAR Xfinity Series, NASCAR Wheeling Series. And you're probably thinking, what does all this mean, right? So within NASCAR, there are several different tiers of racing and series within our sport. And those lead up to the pinnacle, the top series, which is the NASCAR Cup Series. And the NASCAR Cup Series, and even if you're not a huge race fan, you'll probably recognize, some of those names like Kyle Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has raced in the NASCAR Cup Series, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson. This is the first ever NASCAR Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway.
So this is kind of, I don't know what to compare this to because I'm not the best sports person in the world, but this is basically the elite, the cream of the crop, the top racers are coming to Iowa essentially.
That's right. And we think of every race weekend. So there are 36 race weekends throughout the year. We look at every single one, very similar to an all-star game that you would see in Major League Baseball, right? Because every race features 40 of the top drivers in the world, really. So certainly excited to have everybody coming out this weekend. In fact, we have 3 races going on this weekend. We have the ARCA Menards series, which has raced here at Iowa Speedway several times in the past. Really, really exciting. That is more of an intro series for some of the younger drivers that are looking to work their way up to the Cup Series. That's on Friday night. So it kicks off the weekend really exciting. On Saturday is the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which is the level just below and leading into the Cup Series. So you'll still see a lot of very, very talented drivers on Saturday night. In fact, I love watching the Xfinity Series. And over the years, as NASCAR, as you look at those drivers that have raced in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, oftentimes a few years later, you'll see them compete in the NASCAR Cup Series. So that leads us to the big day on Sunday. Not only is it a NASCAR Cup Series day, but it's a night race. So it starts at 6 p.m., perfect Father's Day. We'll turn on the lights as the sun goes down. And just an overall exciting weekend, not just the racing, but the fan experience for all those folks that are coming out, start to finish, gate open to gate close, million different things to do. If you come out or you bring your family out, we have a lot of concerts, we have DJs, as well as a multitude of different partners that are activating, and just a full immersion of activities to do on this coming weekend.
So it's obviously exciting for racing fans and Iowans, but what is the status? Because I was looking at the website, it looks like the Cup Series, that's sold out, but there are still tickets available for Friday and Saturday. What's the rundown there?
Yeah, so Sunday sold out pretty much immediately after that announcement happened last year. And I do want to touch on that because it does go to the overall support from Iowans in general. Made this Cup announcement, And we've been hearing for years, hey, from our fans, we'd love to have Cup racing in Iowa. We'd love to have it in Newton, Iowa. And sure enough, when we made that announcement, they showed the support, sold out. A few months later, for that NASCAR Xfinity Series race, which is sponsored by Hy-Vee, the Hy-Vee Perks 250, that sold out as well.
Goodness.
So we do have a few tickets left for that ARCA Menards Series race on Friday night, which I would encourage any fan that if you haven't bought tickets yet, certainly go to iowaspeedway.com and look at a couple different options there for that ARCA Menards Series. So in addition to that great racing on Friday night, it also allows anyone that comes out to see those NASCAR Cup Series drivers on track on Iowa Speedway for the first time ever as they do their practice sessions throughout the day.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't put that together. So, yeah, okay, that's really fascinating. So, first of all, you haven't been there that long. You touched down February, right?
That's right.
And so your first Cup Series, you touched down in February, it's sold out. You got to feel kind of good about that, I assume.
I feel really good about that. But look, that's a testament to our team. I've been with NASCAR for about 14 years in a couple different roles, and most recently on the corporate sales and sponsorship side at Kansas Speedway. Had some visibility with Phoenix Raceway, Auto Club in California, and a few other tracks. But look, it's that I would love to, take credit for that, but certainly that is just a combination of what our team has done and the overall support from Iowa. But it sure does feel good knowing that we're going into this weekend with an absolutely packed house, not only in the grandstands, but with all of the hospitality areas that we have. Iowa Corn, who is Iowa Corn Growers Association, they're the series sponsor, the entitlement partner for Sunday. So Iowa Corn 350, powered by ethanol, they're bringing out 1,000 corn farmers from the Midwest to entertain on race weekend. I mean, how cool is that, right?
I love that.
What a great organization. And those are the people that we like to work with. We like to associate ourselves with, are those that are not only employing, but giving back to their community and giving back to Iowa and showing support of all of those farmers in not just Iowa, but in the nation.
So I was talking with your marketing, one of your marketing guys to set this up, of course, Matt, and shout out to Matt for being a good dude. And I'm not sure if you verified this internally yet, but is this one of the, he said in recent memory, this may have been one of the very first NASCAR races to sell out before tickets officially went on sale. Can you confirm that?
That I will confirm that that's actually true. Before we could even announce these on sale, all the pre-orders were completely sold out. So the day that we were going to make the announcement that tickets are on sale, well, we had to shift that message a little bit. And I've been working with Matt a long time, and I totally agree with you. Just a phenomenal guy. We had to shift our messaging a little bit in a good way to say, hey, we no longer have tickets available for that Sunday Cup race because of the support. However, let's look at Saturday and Friday. So what a great problem to have, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because Iowans are really hungry for racing, or do you have any idea why? Was there some brilliant marketing play you guys did? Is it just because Iowans are really, really hungry for this? Do you have any idea why it sold out so quickly?
Well, I think a part of what you just said, Iowans love racing. I mean, the state has the most amount of racetracks of any state in the United States, right?
Wait, what?
So, yeah,
I didn't know that.
All the way from your dirt track racing all the way up to, of course, Iowa Speedway with the NASCAR Cup Series, and I'm telling you, everything in between. There are so many fun tracks to go to in Iowa, and that's a Friday night race down in Knoxville or Mason City. The list goes on, and we're trying to be very good stewards of our community and support that racing series, support all of those racing series as well. So I think it really goes back to racing is really popular, and there's an appetite for this in the Midwest, and we're here to deliver. And that really goes back to what our goal is for this coming weekend is, yes, we have a sold out race, but that's just the one piece of it. I think of it working in this sport my entire career, being a fan prior to working here, and thinking about my family, even who are race fans. What is the expectation when someone comes out here for the first time? And it's my job and our team's job to make sure that fan is totally fulfilled through that whole experience, and they have a wonderful time from start to finish. The guest service aspect of it is fun, a lot of stuff to do, concession lines are manageable, and they leave saying, man, the racing was phenomenal, which we feel like it's going to be, there's no doubt, but the experience and just the overall impact and the interactions that I had with the staff here at Iowa Speedway was really, really good for me and my family. And let's go back again next year.
Yeah, and because, Newton isn't a giant metropolitan area. I mean, Des Moines, I guess technically is not a giant metropolitan area either where I live. But so a lot of people are doing the whole camping thing because, there are only a few hotels right next to the track. There are more than a few hotels in Newton, obviously, but I'm imagining those get overwhelmed quickly. And I was looking at your website; all the campsites are also completely filled as well. So, are most of the participants driving in that day? Is there still campsite available? What's like what does that scenario look like?
Yeah, you hit it on another really good point there is our campsites of which we have about 650 of also sold out in that pre-sale. So a lot of fans that have been out here in the past for an ARCA Menards Series race or perhaps an IndyCar race or NASCAR Xfinity Series race, in the mid 2000s, they they jumped right on this. They knew what spot they wanted. They made a phone call. So hotels also booked up really, really quickly, not only in Newton, but Grinnell and Des Moines, Altoona, all of the surrounding areas are pretty full. So we do have a lot of fans that are driving in. They may just be driving in for Friday, may come back on Saturday or come back on Sunday, or could be staying at staying at a hotel in Des Moines as well. So I just love to see all of those folks, personally coming out. If I were to go to some races as a fan, and I've been working in the industry so long, I haven't been to a race as a fan in a really, really long time, is I'd love to go camping. I have the really unique pleasure of going and talking with a lot of our campers, not only this upcoming weekend, which I'm really looking forward to, but I've had that opportunity at Kansas Speedway, like I said, at Auto Club Speedway in California, in Phoenix, and I just love hearing the stories of the camaraderie. Hey, we camp together every single year. This is such a fun experience. And you just see these little communities that are built at the racetracks. And we encourage that. We encourage our fans to come out. After all, this is supposed to be a fun event for everybody.
So are you going to expand maybe campsites in the future, or do you want to leave it as this whole get those tickets soon and get your camp tickets soon and make it more of an exclusive thing? What are the plans there?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down just to the amount of property that we have, honestly.
Yeah.
We have about 350 acres, and we have filled up about every square inch of that right now. And, for those that are kind of familiar with the area, we're surrounded by the airport, which is right behind us. So that's not really an option for us to expand into camping. And then, of course, the highway right across.
They don't like that, is what I've heard.
They don't like that, right?
No, can't park RVs on the airstrip for some stupid reason.
Yeah, so we're a little limited on just the land that we have. But, I mean, we're always going to look at some opportunities on different ways to accommodate more fans, because we'd love to have more people come out, that's for sure.
You should use that airstrip sometime for some promo. Get some F-16s in there and try to race them with NASCAR. That would be pretty sweet.
That's a really good idea. I might actually lift this idea from you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll sponsor it. This idea is sponsored by the Iowa Podcast. But Newton's right in between Iowa City and Des Moines. So an hour drive to Des Moines, roughly an hour 20, I think, to Iowa City. Someone's going to say it's not that long, but that's not crazy. I mean, Iowans are pretty much used to going to Kinnick and Jack Trice and driving back to their corner of the state after the game anyway. So having that close of a commute in the central location is actually a huge advantage, I would say, for the Speedway. You touched on this earlier. I want to ask about it. I'm not a mechanic. I would say most of our listeners probably are not. But powered by ethanol, does this mean the cars that are racing are powered by ethanol, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I am by no means an expert in any kind of a fuel blend, but I will say that I do know that, yeah, I mean, the cars that are on track on Sunday are powered by that ethanol blend. And, that's coming from Iowa corn farmers, right? So this isn't just any kind of a marketing initiative. This is actually happening. And that's been happening with NASCAR, with the sport, for years and years and years. So I can't tell you how much we all appreciate that support of Iowa Corn Growers Association and the farmers. Look, I grew up in a rural area in Kansas, and while that's mostly wheat fields, as you know, moving up and living in Iowa now and seeing all the corn farmers around, like it already feels like home to me. So I just love to see the support of the state. Love to see the support of Newton, And then NASCAR, we try to, like I said earlier, try to be really good stewards of the community.
Now, are these engines that are running ethanol modified from other engines? Are they different cars or different engines, or is it the same engine? I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, I mean they're running a pretty specific engine, but we've got Toyota, Ford, and Chevy that are currently running in the NASCAR Cup Series. So there's some real crew experts and engineers that are working on those cars, and they just do a phenomenal job to make that racing exciting. And every other week, it seems like you see a different manufacturer winning, whether it's a super speedway in Talladega or Daytona, it's a mile and a half like Kansas Speedway is, down to Iowa Speedway, our track, which is the only 7/8 mile track that's on the circuit. It's a very unique size, just under a mile. So technically it's a short track, but there's some fairly high banking. So what we've seen in the past with the Truck Series and IndyCar Series and Xfinity Series is really high speeds, really exciting racing, and knowing that those Cup cars will be on track on Sunday. I mean, it's hard to think that this isn't going to be some of the best racing of the year.
Well, it's interesting because the longer the track, the more difficult it is to see some of the action from every seat, right? And so you have this smaller, tighter track. I've been there, obviously, and you have this smaller, tighter track, and you feel like you're on top of the entire race from your seat. Is this one of the reasons? Because I know that around here it's pretty famous that Rusty Wallace was the one who designed the track. People are excited about it. It's supposedly a very competitive track, and the small size makes it really, really challenging. So, is the small size and the tight turns is that why drivers like this? Did Rusty Wallace design a smaller track for like audience thrill, or is it a little bit of a blend of both?
It's a little bit of a blend of both, and that's a really good point that you bring up, is Rusty's involvement with the design of this racetrack. And he's coming from that design as a racer, right? So he's going to look at things from his perspective. But Rusty is so great to work with, from a sense that he is always thinking about the fans. In fact, he'll be out here this weekend at Iowa Speedway, interacting with the fans. We have several different things lined up for him. So when he designed this, I can only imagine that he's also thinking, hey, if I'm the family or the guy that's sitting in the first row, or I'm sitting up in row 30, let's make sure that they have a really good vantage point of the track. And that's not only Iowa Speedway, but with France family in general and NASCAR tracks, the ability to not have sight lines obstructed, and for every fan that's coming out, regardless of where they're sitting in the stadium, to have full sight line and to be able to watch that race and have a good experience.
So the whole weekend, now I don't understand, like I said, I don't understand racing, but Grimes native Brett Moffitt, am I getting that name right? Number 18 for Toyota. Is he on, what day is he racing? Because I hear that he's going to be racing this weekend.
Yeah, on Saturday. So we've got a few Iowa folks that are coming out here. Mason Mitchell will be racing as well. Brett's racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday, and I think a few other Iowa natives, Joey Gase, for example, will be racing this weekend. So, yeah, some really good support from the state.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, other names, because obviously NASCAR is bigger than just Iowans. I know we're surprised. Iowans, we're proud people. What other names are coming out that people may recognize?
Sure. Well, the series leader right now is Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson is a NASCAR Cup Series champion. He'll be out here racing. You've got Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Ty Gibbs, who has actually won in the ARCA Menards Series at Iowa Speedway before, will be racing in the Cup Series as well, which is really exciting. Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, who is on Michael Jordan's team, we're really excited about having him out. He's just done a phenomenal job, not only on the track, but just interacting with the fans over the past couple of years. And the list goes on. I mean, all of the All-Stars are going to be out here on Sunday, but certainly a lot of great drivers on Saturday and Friday as well. Yeah,
these are the names, these are the big names you hear about all the time coming to Iowa. That's really exciting. I need to ask, what's the story? And I saw the Iowa Everywhere podcast was posting about this, so I don't know much information more than that, but they posted that NASCAR driver Corey, and you're going to have to help me on the name here, LaJoie?
Corey LaJoie, yeah.
Okay, close. Well, I was close. He's going to have a Hawkeye-themed paint job on his car on Sunday?
Yeah.
What is the story behind this? How did this happen?
Well, they must have worked something out with the paint out, which is fantastic. They're running different paint schemes. Some of those run for multiple races, and some are very specific to the actual race. Obviously, this one is very specific to Iowa Speedway. I have had a sneak peek at that paint out. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I will say, I'm not going to give away too much. There's some fan activities and some fan involvement that they're also bringing out along with that paint out that I really encourage fans to just keep an eye out for on race weekend.
Okay, well, hold on though. What does that mean? Fan activities? You're going to have to give
Well,
me.
I
You
mean,
can't
could
just
you see
drop
a mascot
that.
out here? Could you see some people that are, helping promote the school? I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff out in what we call the midway display, but that fan zone area.
Got it. So if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan, maybe get there just a little bit early and see what this is all about. Is that kind of what you're
That's a good way
saying?
to look at it, yeah.
So there's a lot at the Speedway outside of just racing. I don't want to say just racing because that's a pretty big deal, but as I was getting ready to talk to you, I was noticing that you're getting you're not just injecting musical acts into the Speedway. These are like top tier acts. Just a few names I found: Eric Church, Post Malone, Luke Combs, and Kelsey Ballerini. Is this kind of turning into a racing venue, but also a live music venue too?
Yeah, that's the idea, is just to have full entertainment throughout the year, that as long as Iowa weather allows, right? So there's not a lot we can do in the wintertime when it comes to outdoor activities. But yeah, you're exactly right. After this NASCAR Cup Series wraps up this weekend and they move on to the next race, we will host the IndyCar Series, and High V is just a major part of that IndyCar Series. So we'll have that in July, and that's the race that you're referring to that has the four major headliner, the concerts that are coming out. So just another phenomenal weekend for everybody to come out to and experience Iowa Speedway. We have been so pleased to work with both IndyCar, Penske, and High V to put on that weekend. High V does a major lift on bringing those artists out, and we're deeply appreciative of that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of IndyCar, Penske, and Hy-Vee, I mean, they stepped in a big way. I think it was back 2021. I know the track's future was a little bit uncertain at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is the Cup Series, which is a huge deal, is this basically a signal to Iowans that the Iowa Speedway is here for the long haul?
But we certainly hope so. I mean, with the it's hard because every single sanctioning agreement is done year by year. That's for every track around the country. It's all annual, so we can't guarantee anything. But look, we've got a sold out race. We have a lot of excitement in the area. We have great sponsors that are coming out to support us. So things look pretty good. There's not a whole lot more we can do to ensure that this comes back, and we're just so proud of that fact.
So like anything else, it's if you support it, it'll keep going. And if you keep showing up, if you keep paying for tickets, if you keep putting rear ends in seats, it'll keep going. It's basically what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's right, and that's where I ask our fans with your continued support. We love to keep coming back out here, and obviously they have really shown up to support us in 2024. And I personally, as someone who is now an Iowan and moved my family up here in February, we've just been welcomed with open arms, not only on the Iowa Speedway front, but just on the personal front. We're over in Ankeny, and I'm just amazed on how the Iowa Nice moniker is really showing itself over the past couple months. And we're from the Midwest, originally from Kansas, where you have some good Midwest values, but we've really enjoyed living in the state.
Yeah, I mean, you come from a big racing background in Kansas, so can you compare? I don't know if you can, but can you compare and contrast that a little bit? Like, what surprised you about Iowa racing versus Kansas racing? And like you said, Iowans are nice. I don't want you to bash on anything, but what are the differences that you've seen?
Sure. And the main difference, of course, with Iowa Speedway and Kansas Speedway as it relates to specifically the competition is the size of the track. So Kansas Speedway is a 1.5-mile track, which is a pretty large track, right? And then this track itself, and not only just the track, but the 1,200 acres that Kansas Speedway sits on. And then Iowa Speedway is not a smaller track, but a smaller footprint as it relates to everything. So we've had to get really creative here on things like parking and hospitality parking and midway activations and merchandise haulers. And that's where the team has really stepped up and done a really good job because the main focus for us is to make sure that the guest experience is not affected by the fact that we have, a smaller area to work with. We are able to work our way backwards from that to ensure that the fan is having the best time. So, I would say the main thing that I took away from Kansas, and, certainly some really good leadership there. In fact, that's currently how our leadership is structured. Is I'm reporting to Pat Warren, who's the track president at Kansas, and I've worked with him for many, many years. He really instills the values of the best guest experience in motorsports. So the takeaway there is, how can I take what we learned at Kansas, implement that here, and hope we have continued success.
Right. I mean, well, the Kansas Speedway is flanked by 2 interstates, right? And so with multiple feeders and a bunch of infrastructure, so, a little easier to filter people in and out. But Newton's not that way, especially because the Iowa Speedway is a little bit younger. So in the future, have you heard from the state that there are plans to build more infrastructure to support traffic flow and faster traffic flow through there, or is that just not needed yet?
I don't know that it's necessarily needed quite yet. That's really up for to the state to decide that. I'll say this, from what we can control, there are things that we can and we can't control. And from what we can control is we work with a parking and a traffic company that does racetracks all over the country. They do festivals all over the country. So we look for consistency on who we're working with from week to week to week at different NASCAR tracks. And, we're working with who we feel is best of the best in this scenario. And, we feel like they have that really dialed in and buttoned up, along with the Highway Patrol, Newton PD, and all the local authorities to ensure that this is successful. And we have our team here on the ground at Iowa Speedway, but that communication is going on constantly throughout the weekend. If there's some kind of a situation where traffic might have to be rerouted, well, we have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and so on and so forth with, like I said, the best and the best on who we're working with. So very confident going into this weekend.
I mean, Monroe and Prairie City aren't going to cry if you send tons of traffic through their city. They're going to be fine with that, I think.
I think so too.
So last question before I let you go. You were mentioning car makes and models earlier. And I'm the race idiot here. Will we ever see NASCAR, and maybe I'm touching a third rail issue. So if I'm touching a third rail issue, I apologize in advance, racing fans. Don't come beat me up. But will we ever see NASCAR have an EV circuit, or will we see EVs competing alongside gas cars? Obviously, these are very, very different cars and designs, but will NASCAR ever get into EVs or have a component of EV racing?
Yeah, I mean, those are conversations that happen out in our Charlotte office and Daytona as well, with our research and development team, who again are all pros in that area. But keep in mind, so my job as a promoter is to make sure we're putting on the best event, but being in the sport, the goal for a lot of these manufacturers in being involved with NASCAR is so they can test out all new equipment year to year on the racetrack in the most extreme conditions. So I really don't think anything can be ruled out. As you see, NASCAR is a testing ground for Ford, for Toyota, for Chevy to try out the latest and the greatest and what works, what doesn't work. And that's what they're implementing when they go to market with some of these new vehicles. So I think anything is possible. And our leadership team at NASCAR has done a really great job over the past 4 or 5 years on being really bold on what they're doing. We had a race in the LA Coliseum where USC plays football, right? I was fortunate enough to be a part of that. Built a racetrack on a football field, raced a quarter mile, and then that racetrack was picked up and went away a few weeks later. Racing in the streets of Chicago, which we are less than a month away from that happening with the Chicago street race. I think just the bold movements and the bold decisions that our leadership team has taken over the past couple of years, there's just no limit on what's possible.
I mean, so it sounds like the conversations, there's nothing official, but it sounds like the conversations are at least being had, is what I hear.
Yeah, I think anything's possible at this point, certainly.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't even know what that does to racing. I don't know if that makes it more exciting or less exciting. Like, the one thing that would be weird is you go to the Iowa Speedway and it can get freaking loud. Like, I think that would be my recommendation, is bring ear protection. My word. But if you went to an EV race, there'd be like no sound. It'd be really bizarre. So I don't know.
It would take some getting used to, but at the same time, just the sheer torque and the speed of those vehicles would be really fun to watch and quite a spectacle. But yeah, you touched on a really good point that I cannot overstate is if you're coming out here this weekend, please bring ear protection because all of those cars on track at the same time, it can be a pretty deafening roar. I mean, I describe for those that have never been to a NASCAR race, I really describe it as a visceral experience. The overwhelming sound, the feels, the smells, you're tasting the rubber. I mean, the whole experience is just so great, and you really feel like you're part of something down there. But yes, please bring ear protection. There will be some available on site if you get here and happen to forget it or just didn't think about it before you left the house. We're trying to be as prepared as possible to accommodate for those fans.
Last question before I let you go. Will we ever see a street race in downtown Des Moines?
Well, like I said, it's nothing. I don't think anything can be ruled out at this point. I haven't heard of that conversation going on, but who knows? I mean, if you look at Iowa Speedway 10 years ago, was there going to be a cup race in 2024? True. And here we are now, right?
Yeah, old school Iowans will remember the Grand Prix that used to happen in downtown Des Moines. And so every once in a while, rumors pop up that maybe it'll come back. So I don't know, Eric, maybe you were brought to Iowa for this reason, to relaunch the next version of the Grand Prix in downtown Des Moines. But, let's start with the F-16 and race car race on the airstrip nearby. Eric Peterson, president of the Iowa Speedway in Newton, congratulations on the new gig, and we're proud to have you in Iowa.
Proud to be here. Thanks for having me.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.